You've heard the phrase, go inward, listen to your heart, follow your, best judgment, do what's right for you. You've heard people tell you that. I've told you that. I literally have said that the answers are inside of you. All you have to do is give stillness to yourself. This is something that is really just growing traction amongst all of us because we're understanding how it works. But no one's really talking about how you do that. So how do you talk to yourself or go inward? Whatever it is that, the phrase that you're working with that right now is. So how do you go inward? How do you get answers from yourself? How do you connect with yourself? First thing that you're going to just kind of assume right here is meditation. And yes, meditation is a very common way to get answers from your own self, whether it be your future self, your highest self, whatever. It's a good practice. So I'm not going to discount meditation, but a lot of us really struggle to hear, that inner voice or even get into a meditated state where, you're quiet, where your brain's not, going overloaded with questions. So if meditation isn't your, thing that you can do right away, or if you don't really have the ability to go walk your 3 miles to do your active meditation or whatever it is, let's talk about the other ways that we can get answers from ourselves. One of the first ones and easiest ones for me to do, and I do this on a regular basis, is I write like a list, okay? And it's one of those things where if I'm really aggravated about something or frustrated about something, or if I'm feeling blocked, I will literally write down my thoughts in list form. And I'm not talking about journaling. We all know I love to journal, but this is completely different. This is me going like, why am I procrastinating doing dishes? What are my thoughts about dishes? We've been there, done that. And it'll be, dishes just take too much energy. My hands get wrinkly. I really get grossed out by what's in the sink, even though I'm the one that put in the sink, but still. And like, I'm literally just bullet point listing everything and how I feel about dishes until eventually I might get to deeper stuff where it's like, I really hated as a child having to lean over the chair and, get into the sink. And maybe it's, all these issues, all the things around just one simple chore of doing dishes, probably an inner child thing. For me, it really was. I really, as a kid, I'm short. So I had to get on a chair and lean over the sink to do dishes. And like, it hurt my stomach, and I hated that my stomach got wet and that my clothes were wet afterwards. And it just was a really physically uncomfortable thing for me. And so as an adult, whether it was 5 dishes or a whole sink full of dishes, I had that same, like, I don't want to do this. It's uncomfortable because of what happened to me like 20 plus years ago. Actually, yeah, I'm not going to age myself. We'll go 20 plus years ago. So it was one of those things where I found out by talking to myself the reason why I struggled doing dishes. And it was because I literally wrote lists about my thoughts about dishes. Even like the most mundane one, like dishes suck. Yeah, wrote that out. Another thing that you can use, another like example for a list is like when you're having a big decision to make. And I'm talking, what do I do career-wise? What do I do, in my relationship? How do I handle this? It helps with those things too. And I've done it multiple times on the big things. In fact, I do it more on the big things than I do it on the small things because I would be just so shocked at how much programming is still inside of me from little Kirsten, teenage Kirsten, young adult Kirsten, all these parts of me that were still kind of controlling the decisions I'm trying to make now to change my life, and I didn't even realize it. So good example is, when I was considering, going full-time into this and leaving my job, I was like, okay, what is holding me back? I lacked a lot of confidence because as a child, I was told I'm just a kid and I don't know any better. My intelligence was constantly questioned as a child. As a teenager, my intelligence was constantly questioned by my friends and family. I mean, we're a teenager, but still, no one wanted to take what I had to say seriously. And as an adult, I felt like I always had to prove my intelligence. So when I wanted to go into a business where I might be, someone teaching other people stuff, I felt the resistance from, we're going to say 20 plus years again, because it was one of those things where my intelligence was constantly being questioned, so therefore I was questioning my own intelligence. And that was on a big scale thing, but I had to figure that out by writing lists. And the list I literally wrote for that question, like, what's keeping me from wanting to dive in, literally weren't necessarily my own thoughts. It was the like message I heard over and over again. Like I would write down, I'm just a kid, I don't know any better. And I haven't had that much life experience. Who am I to say? I am not in that situation. And just it was like so many other people's voices that were still running in my head. I wrote them out and I was like, okay, none of this is me anymore. We're getting rid of this. So writing lists on small or big things really does help. How else can we talk to ourselves? How else can we get in touch with our inner self? Similar, but a little different. Interview yourself. Literally, ask yourself the questions that you want to know the answers to. So I actually, ironically, was doing this today on a sheet of paper, and I was asking myself about where I am business-wise, because right now I'm not where I want to be, but I know I'm on the path. And it's one of those things that I've been doing this for a while now, but it does help as long as you stay honest with yourself. So for this exercise, you really have to have a healthy dose of self-honesty, or else it's not going to work out. You have to be willing to let yourself answer in ways that you don't want to, but you have to be able to do this so you can get the root of the issue completely worked out. So, not really going to talk about that one, but let's talk about another time that I've done interviews with myself. When, before I decided to become and start doing retreats, I felt a lot of fear talking to the public. You know, just 10, 15 people, not like it was crazy, but still, like, I had a lot of fear behind it. So I literally had to, again, ask myself questions like I was doing an interview. Now, I'm not saying it's got to be a job interview. You can think of it like a celebrity interview or whatever. Just ask yourself the questions. The questions I had to ask myself is, why am I afraid talking to people? I love talking to people, actually. I love talking. So the fact that like I'm afraid to stand up in front of a crowd of 10 to 15 people just seemed really odd. And when I got down to it, it was because I felt like I should stay small. I didn't feel like I deserved to be on that stage. Truth is, it had nothing to do with, actually talking to people. It actually had everything to do with my self-image. Is that something I actually wanted to swallow? Is that something I wanted to hear? No, I've been working years on getting my self-image up. So why is it still something I want to actually admit is the truth? Well, it was because I used a healthy dose of honesty, and I was like, okay, I don't need to be small. I'm not small. I'm a person who is doing something big, and therefore I have to be as big as I am. Metaphorically speaking, I'm not talking about weight here. Another thing that I did that questionnaire, like where I interviewed myself, the same thing about being on a retreat, or not being on a retreat, leading a retreat, is who am I to actually even lead a retreat? Well, that was overwhelming because I felt like for the first time when I was writing my answers down, I literally felt the overwhelmingness, and then I literally heard myself just crack open and say, I don't have the structure to do this. I literally had to admit myself that there was part of me, and it was a very real part at that time too, that didn't think they had the discipline to pull something together like that. Now, granted, I wasn't doing it alone. I had my friend Chantel with me, but it was one of those things where I literally was breaking apart because this was a much bigger thing I was putting together than I've ever put together. I've been a daycare teacher. I've done many events. I've done a lot of things where I put things together, but this was on a whole nother scale, and it was scary. And I actually had to admit that I was scared. I don't like to be scared. I don't like to admit that I'm scared. I'd like to pretend like I'm fearless, but it is what it is. I had to give myself that healthy dose of honesty. So what kind of interviews can you give to yourself? Any situation, whether it be about a conversation you need to have with a significant other. Ask yourself, why are you afraid of having this conversation? What do you think the outcome's going to be? What is it that you really want to say? Do that. If it's about buying a house, go ahead and ask yourself the hard questions so that way when you're ready and you're starting to move through it, you have the real answers. Again, though, I need to emphasize honesty with yourself is key. Don't put what you want to put down, put how you really feel. Another thing that you can do to get in touch with yourself, and this has helped me a lot too, is writing letters to yourself. Now, when you write the letters to yourself, you obviously don't have to keep them. You can burn them, bury them, whatever. But writing letters to yourself really helps. So the easy one to do and the most relevant, if you're like not used to writing yourself letters, is to write to the past you in any other, like in any way. If you're being triggered by something or you're dealing with something that you know has to do with your past or something that's stemming from your past, write a letter to past you saying, hey, little me, I know that, the thing that happened when we were 10, really sucked, but we're going to get past this. And what happened to you, A, was not fair. And just give the realistic understanding of what happened to you so that way you can start healing that part of you. Yeah, it doesn't heal what happened to you at the age of 10 in that moment, but it heals you in the moment now. And that's what's important. So for me, okay, we'll just say when I had my first car wreck, I was 16 or 17. I don't know. I was 16 or 17. I was not out of the 2-year. If you live in Ohio, which is where I'm from, if you have like too many incidences before you turn 18, they can revoke your license. So I know I wasn't 18 yet when I had this car because I was really afraid that it was going to be one of those things that revoked my license because I'd already had one speeding ticket. But either way, young me, teenager, car accident. Well, so I literally was confident. I was overconfident. I was driving. It was raining and I ran into a telephone pole and that scared the living daylights out of me. Was the accident really that bad? No. Real truth is my dad passed away when I was 1 in bad road conditions and his car slammed into the telephone pole and caused him to, pass away due to some brain swelling. So it's one of those things where the accident itself wasn't bad. My overconfidence and my my teenage self to think that I was, somehow better than the road. I don't know, but whatever led me to get into that accident, I can 100% tell you I didn't process that as a teenager. I know I didn't. Because as an adult, when it was raining and there was a really bad storm, I nearly had a panic attack. And when I finally got myself calm, I got myself home, I was like, that is not normal. I can drive in the rain. But there was one particular day, it was about 5 years ago, it was really bad storm and I was under a lot of stress. And I was like, why did I almost have a panic attack driving in the rain? I've never had a problem. I've been doing this for years, and I've been doing it safely for years. What is going on? Well, when I finally came to terms with myself, I was like, I remembered the wreck that I had when I was a teenager. And I just started writing to my teenage self about how it's okay, how, things happen and it's unfortunate. Nothing terrible happened at the time. I thought I was going to lose my license. I thought I was going to get grounded. I did get a little bit of discipline, but still, you know what I mean? Like, as a teenager, my fears were unfounded and they were not in the right place. As an adult, I addressed those fears and I was like, hey, I know you were scared of this. I know you were scared of losing your friends. I know you were scared of having to, have your life cut short, but we have made it this far. And I literally was just writing to that version of myself who needed to hear that stuff then, didn't understand that I needed to hear that stuff then, but it healed that part of me. And since then, I've not had an issue with driving in the rain. And that was a one-off thing anyway, but still, it was a letter I needed to write to myself, and it was really important. Another letter that you can actually receive from yourself now. So I talked about writing to past you. You can actually try to receive a letter from future you as well, or your highest self. And when you do that, you kind of put yourself in I'm going to say meditative space, but understand that when I say that, I don't necessarily mean we have to have a clear head, but we need to be open to whatever we're going to write down. So we have to be in an open space, an open heart space where we're full of love. Maybe say a bit of a prayer before you do the letter from your future self. Say, give me divine guidance on what I need. Give me spiritual guidance, or God, give me guidance. Whoever your ultimate power or being is, ask them to give you that guidance. Say, future self, higher self, give me the guidance I need. And then literally you can write the letter as, dear current me or dear past me, this is what you need to know in order to move forward. And it's really cool, the things that come out. I literally do this on a regular basis for my business, for my relationships. Like, I love just the amount of, I don't even know, like wisdom that I have all of a sudden when I'm receiving a letter from future me as I'm currently writing it down. And it's pretty profound half the time. And the things that I tell myself as I'm writing that letter or receiving that letter, whatever way you want to see it or perceive it, is really cool because sometimes I'll point out things I didn't even realize were an issue to me, or I'll suddenly find solutions that have been, missing from my life, even though I'm currently in it and I've been trying to work on this for about 2 weeks, or whatever the, timeline is. Future me letters are my favorite letters to receive because every time I receive something, I get really profound knowledge, I get a lot of information, and I'm literally shocked about what I'm writing about because it's coming from me and I've been stressing, struggling, worrying, all the things about this, and here I am with all the answers, and it's pretty cool. If you're going to do the letter from future self, though, you do want to give yourself a quiet space and some time where you're not going to get interrupted, because as soon as you get interrupted, you lose that flow and that letter shut off. You never get back to it. So if you're going to do a letter from your future self, if you're going to receive that letter, then make sure you are in a space where you have like 10 minutes to yourself or 15 minutes where you're not going to get interrupted by other people. The interruption really just ends the letter for you, unfortunately. Okay, so getting in touch with yourself, going inside yourself to find the answers. How can we do it? We can interview ourselves by writing and being very, very honest. You can write lists about how you feel about things and just see what pops up. Just, again, being honest with yourself and receiving letters from either our future selves or writing to our past selves to heal. These are all very effective ways to get in touch with yourself, and they don't really cost for any type of a meditation, and you can be done at any time as long as you have 5 or 10 minutes to spare for yourself and some pen and paper. That's all I got for you today. If you made it this far, thank you for making it to this end of the video. Hit the like or dislike depending on how you feel about the advice. If you want some private coaching, there's a link in the description below, and I will see you again soon.